Hey folks, this is Marsilio with a little bit of a different video today. Today I'm going to take a look at my view of the most interesting Astro market charts of 2022. So no forecast here, but if you want to see how much planet motions impact markets, this will be, I think, a pretty interesting review. So this first one that I have up is bonds, 30-year bond contract with Saturn signs. So when Saturn, which is, for people who know a little bit more astrology, planet of fear and restriction, when Saturn was in Capricorn, which is its home sign, but also particularly related to fear and kind of a conservatism. When Saturn was in Capricorn, which is the dark gray, bonds were doing quite well, and the all-time high in bonds, so that would have coincided with the global low in yields, happened right at the start of COVID, when stocks were crashing and bonds were soaring, interest rates plummeting, and Saturn moved out of Aquarius. That was the top, moved back into Capricorn via retrograde. It was kind of a high test, and then into Aquarius for good. And look at the big slide in bonds. Not the only factor impacting the bond market, but pretty clear Saturn in Aquarius has been very negative for bonds, so rising interest rates, and that's also been the theme of the year, impacting both stocks, cryptos, and currencies for that matter as well. Next chart. Same asset class, actually, still ZB bond futures, just a totally different view. Here I am showing Saturn motion, and Saturn sign, we had a kind of near a key high in bonds, and Saturn motion is the low of the year in the 10-year and 30-year. They were slightly different. One was like Friday, one was Monday. But Saturn turning direct was the low in the bond market this year. Kind of amazing stuff, since that's really just apparent motion from the Earth's perspective, but we'll have more motion charts coming up. Next chart. This is for people who know a little bit more about my work. I do a lot with the terms, divisions of the zodiac sign. Find them to be incredibly powerful, and the data really does back me up. Here is Pluto term chart for S&P, and the first time into the red, that would be Mars, was still in the middle of an uptrend, but second time into term Mars from Saturn was pretty much the top. Last time we had an extended bear market was Pluto and term Mars in Great Financial Crisis over here. So it's just incredible that all these, there was this kind of a sideways period and COVID crash that didn't last, but the kind of longer duration bear last time, both Pluto and term Mars. Amazing. Here's another interesting term chart. This is Neptune this time. So Neptune changing term into Mars, also involved in the bond move, and Neptune being in Pisces, I think this has been a more destructive side of inflation, and the bond market sniffed that out sooner than stocks and started dropping. In any case, both Pluto and Neptune in term of Mars for this big slide, and really massive destruction in total wealth when you think of kind of a standard portfolio stock bond mix. One of the worst years in history for a combined portfolio, and it just so happens both both Pluto and Neptune in term of Mars for this destructive year. Next chart, also an amazing chart. This shows the gray, shows very simply Jupiter together in the same zodiac sign as Saturn. And I'm not cherry picking. This was the last, time so as Jupiter separated from Saturn this time, also quite near this major top in S&P. And then a very similar thing happened the last time this occurred was near the 2000 top, and as Jupiter wasn't really the top to the day, but as Jupiter separated from Saturn by sign, the decline began in much stronger force. So, as usual with astrology, many layers, many different ways of looking at it, but kind of incredible that, 20-ish years later, very similar thing happening with Jupiter and Saturn. Next chart. This chart shows Mars motion, and when it's in orange, I'm showing Mars slowing in motion, and red, the retrograde. This is on the dollar index. This was one of the most powerful trends of the year since interest rates were going up and cash is coming from around the world to buy dollars to hold those guaranteed treasuries for the higher yield. And quite a strong move, going from 90 to top near 114. That's a huge move in the dollar index. And when did this finally slow down and turn around? When Mars motion slowed and the retrograde has been the biggest drop of the year in the dollar. Kind of a classic Mars momentum, high energy, and when that energy changed, the strongest momentum trade of the year also changed nearby. Another particularly interesting motion chart. This is Venus. Venus motion cycles have tremendous impact on markets, and it's actually one of the, when I first did a Twitter Spaces, I talked just on Venus motion, and that was last October, and I said we've got Venus retrograde coming up, and while they're not that uncommon, I thought that this one would be different than the last ones. And sure enough, the all-time high, which is now looks much more important on the S&P, was just a few days into the retrograde period in red. So Venus had been slowing, went retrograde. A few days later, S&P top, and that is obviously turned into a very significant top. Has this happened before? Indeed, it has. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to show on cryptos. The top was actually just as Venus slowed, and by the time the retrograde started, it was already well off the highs. But this is Venus slowing, and that's the high in Bitcoin and Ethereum. Probably not going to see those levels for quite some time. And then moving on, has this happened before? Has Venus motion been near a major turn in markets? Yep, this is Venus turning retrograde right on the 2009 low in the S&P. And then there's another even permutation, 2007 top. I can go on. It is just many times Venus changing direction, having incredible important impact on markets. And so this time very near the high, the all-time high in the S&P, and then the slowing period was the all-time high in Bitcoin. And so got a lot of Bitcoin fans or crypto fans, my audience, so going to be several of these charts coming up. This is North Node on Ethereum and Bitcoin, just showing the power, the North Node in Gemini, when all these different coins were rallying, led by Ethereum and Bitcoin. And the change into Taurus, into green, completely changed character markets. It's just no longer the fascination that it was with the North Node in air sign Gemini. And now moving on to some moon cycle charts. This is moon quarters. These things still show up on some printed calendars. This is just going dividing the whole moon cycle from new to full back to new. If that's a total of 360, first quarter is 0 degrees to 90 degree relationship between moon and the sun, then 90 to 180, 180 to 270, and then 270 back to 0. So this is 2022 only by moon quarter on Bitcoin. Quarter 4 delivering the goods. Is this a new edge? Is this something that came out of the blue? No, here's the same data going back to 2021 and fourth quarter, huge outperformance. So even if you didn't know anything coming into the year and was looking for bounces or longs in fourth quarter, that was a tremendous edge. And next chart, this is actually the 2021 data only. not including 2022. And so if we were just looking at that a year ago, we'd say, wow, fourth quarter is really doing well. Did that edge maintain into this year? Yes, it did. Of course, all the others were much worse in the bear market environment. And for that matter, something very similar with moon signs. This is 2022 only moon signs on Bitcoin. Virgo, the absolute worst. Students of astrology will note that's opposing Neptune, so I think that had something to do with why Virgo has been so negative, especially with the concerns about inflation. And now, looking at the data slightly differently, 2021 and 2022, very similar pattern with Virgo, Cancer, Taurus. So has this data been in play? Here's 2021 only. If we were looking at last year, same chart, we'd say, wow, Virgo looks the worst. And then, these four also front of the zodiac, not so great. And once again, did that persist into this year? Certainly for Virgo, and then Taurus and Cancer, much worse as well. So hope you found that interesting. If you like this, I really appreciate your likes on Twitter and YouTube, subscribes if you're interested in this kind of view of the market. Of course, I'll be doing my best to stay on top of all the major moves in the coming year. So hope you're having good holidays and Happy New Year.